from the executive producers of Stranger Things. It's a supernatural mystery set in a retirement community. Woodard will talk about her nearly 50 years of work, from Hill Street Blues to Clemency. Join us. Weekdays at 2 on WNYC.
I'm Stephen Nesson, a transit reporter here at Gothamist and WNYC. It seems like every week there is breaking news about transit in the city that affects how we all get around, on subways, roads, and much more. Keep up with the latest by listening to On the Way, Thursdays on All Things Considered, and sign up for our weekly newsletter at wnyc.org/ontheway.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
Marketplace Morning Report is coming up next, and then in 10 minutes at 9 o'clock, it's the BBC NewsHour on WNYC. Let's check in with London and see what they're working on. Hello, London.
Good morning, WNYC. I'm Sean Lay. On today's NewsHour, Israeli attacks in southern Lebanon as evacuation orders affect nearly 15% of the country, and Paul McCartney on how the media made him doubt his memories. That's BBC NewsHour coming up at 9 on WNYC.
Low 70s on this Thursday morning with some sunshine in Soho. We'll have more clouds today, a high near 76 degrees, wind gusts to 26 miles an hour, and then tomorrow sunny and near 80, still gusty. Saturday, mostly sunny, near 70, still gusty. Then Sunday, sunshine in mid-70s, so a nice stretch here of some spring weather. Alternate side parking suspended, but we still must pay the parking meters. And taking a quick look at your subways this morning, multiple delays. Check before you go.
Artificial intelligence in the hiring process and the bias problem.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Amazon Business, featuring smart business buying AI tools to help navigate business purchases paired with delivery options built for business. AmazonBusiness.com. And by Fidelity, a dedicated advisor can help create a comprehensive wealth plan. Investment minimums apply. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC.
From Marketplace, I'm Nova Safo. Good morning. Most companies are now using AI to help with hiring, about 90%, according to the World Economic Forum. But a new study from the Stanford Institute for Human-Centered AI finds that one such hiring tool, used by lots of companies, is often biased against Black and Asian applicants. Marketplace's Samantha Fields has more.
Anyone who's been job searching knows it's rough out there. Companies aren't posting many jobs, and when they do, they get tons of applications.
They almost have to use an algorithm in some way to be able to look through the number of applications that are coming in.
Sarah Bana at Chapman University says the AI tool she and her study co-authors looked at screens applicants by having them play behavioral video games. She says the company behind it actively tries to eliminate bias.
But what we find is they still end up with racial bias in the algorithm.
The AI discriminated against Black applicants in about 25% of jobs and against Asian applicants in about 15% of jobs. This is a tool that many companies are using. So Kathleen Creel, a co-author at Northeastern University, says if you apply to 5 different places,
it could be that the same system is actually screening your resume at all 5 of those. And so these 5 supposedly independent chances are no longer independent.
This is a real problem, says Alok Mehta at the Center for Strategic and International Studies.
Unless companies take steps to really include human review and manage how these systems are being deployed internally, they're going to replicate patterns all across industry.
And people who are already marginalized in hiring could be marginalized even further. I'm Samantha Fields for Marketplace.
Let's do the numbers. Well, more strikes between the U.S. and Iran are sending oil prices right back up this morning. Brent crude is up 2% at $96 per barrel. Overnight, the Hang Seng Index in Hong Kong fell 1.25%. Dow, S&P, and NASDAQ futures are pointing down, but just marginally at about 0.1% each.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Barron's Investor Circle, offering stock picks, market insights, and access to the Barron's editors behind a century of reporting at barrons.com/investor circle. And by GEP, working to help companies optimize value and reduce risk with the AI-native GEP Quantum Intelligence Procurement and Supply Chain Platform.
The Federal Reserve's preferred measure of inflation just came out, the Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index. It shows April prices up 3.8% on an annual basis. That's as expected and hotter than inflation in March. Excluding food and energy, core prices in April rose 3.3%. Before the Iran war, about a third of the world's fertilizer that's shipped by sea moved through the Strait of Hormuz. And in the last 3 months, fertilizer prices have risen between 30 and 50%, according to the American Farm Bureau Federation. There were fears early on during the war that such increases would force farmers to plant less. So we're checking in with economist Faith Parham of the Farm Bureau to see how things have shaked out. Good morning.
Good morning.
So the latest outlook from the Agriculture Department for this year projects that wheat production will be down, corn and rice production down. How much of that do you think is because of the Iran war disruptions?
So this first survey they do with farmers is done right at the end of February and beginning of March. So we might be seeing some changes in planting due to the conflict in Iran. And so when June comes around, they'll do their June acreage report. That's when farmers will tell us what they actually planted and not just what they intended to plant. We might see some more changes there. Soybeans are less nitrogen intensive, so they require less fertilizer. So we might see more shift to those soybean acres.
A lot of what farmers here grow are global commodities. So from the consumer perspective, if yields are affected globally, what does that mean for consumers? And what should they be expecting either this fall or early next year?
So it's because these are global commodities, things like barley, corn, and wheat, all these, used in some sort of production. If there is a global shortfall and we see yields really dropping in other countries, we will see those prices go higher, which could translate to higher food prices. But it is really early to tell. We'll have to see what yields coming out of the rest of the world look like when their crop season ends. Really also a big thing too is fuel prices. Agriculture is a very trucking intensive industry. So higher diesel prices will make, things more expensive for the farmer. We've seen farm margins in the negative for the last 3 years, going on 4. So it'll continue to strain that farm economy, but also just be more expensive to move those products.
And what accounts for the losses prior to the disruptions caused by the Iran war?
So record high production expenses. Since the COVID-19 pandemic, we've seen a wave of inflation that really hasn't subsided in ag input costs, things like the seed, the fertilizer, the chemicals they use, their equipment, all of these things. Labor has become really expensive for farmers across the country. And all of those production expenses continue to add up while farmers continue to get paid very little for their crops. So farmers are price takers. So just because their production expenses are going up doesn't mean they get to charge more for their commodity. They just have to accept that global price for it. And so we've seen losses across the farming community.
Are you seeing, more consolidation, more people choosing to leave farming completely?
Yes, so we have seen an increase in the number of farm bankruptcies, but also farm closures. Farm bankruptcies are only for folks that make the majority of their money farming, and most of our farmers across the country are dual income households, or they work other jobs to make the farming math out. So we've seen an increase of farm closures. And what we're also seeing is more and more kids that don't want to come back to the farm after leaving school. Right now, the economic situation is very bleak. And so it's harder and harder to get those young folks back to the farm to continue those family farms. So we've seen, 6, 7 generation farms, close their gate and sell. Most of this land is staying in agriculture, not all of it, but most of it. But we're again seeing more consolidation into larger operations. We are seeing families combine to, incorporate and have bigger family farms to make sure that they can stay afloat.
Faith Parham is an economist with the American Farm Bureau Federation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm Nova Safo with the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.
Support for